It just makes it all feel a little bit more real.
Real, this story.
Right. The fact that we can hear it is my favorite.
You like that?
Oh, yeah.
It's sneaking in right now.
Here it comes.
I can't even hear
It's
it.
there.
Boom. What is up, everybody? How we doing? How we feeling? We are back for another episode of the FinalVibe podcast. And this one is going to be, I think, unlike any of the others. We have a very special guest. Alongside me is Andrew White, our co-host.
I'm here. Good to be here. Thank you, Kevin.
And our guest today is John Crawford. John, you are a man of many trades. And we were joking about how we write your title on the marketing material for what we're about to produce because you have too many commas in your title. You are many, many things. And the most exciting, I think, to talk about is the fact that you are now a grandfather.
Yeah.
Which is extremely...
You know, what I would have said is the most exciting thing was just dad, you know, but hey, we can say granddad now.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Maybe we should ask him how we should put the commas.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we'll cover that. Everything for sure. We'll make sure we get all your titles right. But John, we are so excited to have you here. A prime beef producer.
That's correct.
A banker.
Yes.
And the owner of a wedding barn.
Well, co-owner.
It's
of Lana's wedding barn that she lets me help her with.
Your wife, Lana, you're correct, yes.
See, the humble attitude is already coming out.
It's already coming out. Well, we're thrilled to have you, John. And this interview, I think, could easily be multiple hours long to cover everything that we respect and admire about you and that we want to cover. We'll try to get you out of here sooner than a few hours from now before sunset, maybe. But we have a lot to cover. Most importantly, I think, to cover today, I think one of the most awesome aspects of FinalVibe is that we like to talk about legacy. And when I think about legacy recently, it's included family and what that means to me and what that will mean to my future. And I cannot imagine where you stand right now as a father and now a grandfather. Your daughter just gave birth to twins. When was that?
Just today. 10 o'clock this morning.
10 o'clock this morning. So, John, tell us, I'll let you speak. Tell us about yourself, and then we'll go from there. But what when you describe yourself to somebody else, how do you start?
I generally say I'm, father of 4 great kids and the lucky husband of Lana. And that's the most important things for me anyway. And then from there, Lana and I have been married for 33 years, and we've built a farm together. We've had a family together, and our newest adventure is the Pearl Wedding Barn.
Which is where we are actually sitting right now, which is super special to record this episode in your wedding barn that is on your property in Hamilton, Missouri. And it is a spectacular place that was built a year ago.
Yeah, we're working on 2 years. We started construction 2 years ago now.
2 years ago, okay.
It was. So we had our first event in the fall of 18, and it's been busy ever since.
Sure. I cannot imagine. So where do we start? I think, how do you... What when you say what you do for a living and day to day, how would you describe kind of your process from Monday to Friday?
I always say my day job is I'm a banker, and so that's where I spend my 8 to 5. But my day starts at about 6:30, taking care of cattle, and then I'm very fortunate in that I get to live and work within. My home is 2 miles from my office, so I can run to the office and I can run back home to take care of business or do what I need to there. And so my 8 to 5, and then I say I typically work 12 plus hours a day, some in the middle on each end, and on we go.
It seems like you like it that way, though.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I don't sit still well. That's. And that's kind of a negative thing too, because sometimes you need to stop and enjoy life. So, but I also, the part of taking care of cattle sometimes is enjoyable. I start out in the morning, I go do chores, I grab my cup of coffee, I get in the truck and go feed cattle, and I get to see the sunrise in the wintertime, and I get to see the sunset every evening.
That's awesome. It's awesome to see how much you appreciate that, because I know Andrew and I, we get to come to Hamilton once or twice a year to hang out, and it's absolutely beautiful. And I wonder if some of that beauty is the fact that we're from Columbia and we're relatively medium-sized city, and there's buildings everywhere and there's people everywhere, and you come to a place like Hamilton, and it is night and day, and it's just completely different. One of the most beautiful places to wake up, and tomorrow morning, that's the first thing on my list. I want to wake up and, like you said, make coffee and watch the sunrise, and that's something I look forward to every time I get to come here. So the fact that you get to do that every day and appreciate that is pretty awesome.
I do, and it is what makes. Well, if I happen to sleep in and I don't get out, my day doesn't run as well. I just like to get out and see the world come to life. It makes my day run better.
This seems like a perfect opportunity to ask the morning routines question. So you spoke about it briefly, but what is the John Crawford morning routine?
The morning routine is the alarm goes off at 6 or 6:30, depending, sometimes 5:30, depending on how much I have to get done.
Sure.
First thing is the coffee pot.
No waste any time getting straight to the coffee
straight
pot.
to the coffee pot. I make my coffee. I take my 2 cups of coffee.
Oh, there you go.
And I hit the road.
Are you a coffee snob, or is it just kind of the store brand?
It's normally the Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
Okay.
Oh, that's not bad.
Sometimes I spice it up, and the kids. That's always the one thing I always tell them for Christmas. If you don't have to give me anything. Just give me some special coffee. That's
Seriously,
good enough.
shake it up.
That's right.
Do you like experimenting with different kinds, or
I do.
have you pretty much settled into the Dunkin' Donuts?
No, actually, sometimes I actually have to regress, clear back to Folgers once in a while. Then you really appreciate the good stuff again.
Go back to
That's
square
so
one.
funny. That's funny. Well, it's funny because my mother drinks Folgers coffee to this day. And so growing up, I just thought that was like, I don't know, coffee, good enough, like the coffee.
Right.
And so it's funny to know that Folgers is kind of the dumpster of the coffee world.
It's the reset. Is the way
That's
I look
right.
at it.
That's right. Your humble roots.
That's right.
Do you drink hot coffee all year long, or do you?
I do. No, I do
Okay.
not drink cold coffee.
Yeah, I started dabbling in the iced coffee here and there in the summers.
Are you a cold brew guy? Have you ever had cold brew?
I've tried it.
It's
No,
odd.
it
It's
doesn't-
odd.
doesn't
I try to
doesn't
like
hold
it
that
because I think
experience.
I feel more trendy if I can drink cold brew. But
Right.
I can't pretend that I actually like it.
It's like twice as much caffeine in the same
Is
amount.
that
of liquid.
right?
I think so. It's
I
an
have no
intense
idea.
drink.
Yeah.
Anyway, you start with the
Yeah.
coffee. What's after?
So,
that?
hey, and after that, typically in the wintertime, I get in the truck and I start making the rounds. I have cattle scattered around for about a 5-mile radius from home. And I have a truck that I actually can carry 2 bales of hay on plus extra feed. And I just start making the rounds, feeding cattle. Typically, in the wintertime, it takes me about 2 hours every morning and sometimes 2 hours every night, the time I make the rounds and get everybody fed. Summertime, it's a lot more casual. I just get to drive around in the Ranger and kind of make sure everybody's where they're supposed to be and watch the sun come up.
Right.
Make sure they have salt and mineral in their feeders. And calving season is more fun. I say every morning calving season is kind of like Christmas morning. You get to go see what you got overnight. So,
Well, tell us what you mean by that, because this is what I'm guessing. Most people have no idea how any of this works. I don't know how any of
I
this
don't know
works.
how any
So
of
to
this
tell us, teach us.
So I would have to say, and during calving season, we have our cattle where we calve twice a year. We have calves born in latter part of March through about the middle of May. So about a 2-month period. And during that time, and like I say, it's like every morning's like Christmas morning. I get to go check cows and see who has delivered a new package overnight, that nice little new calf.
Sure.
And sometimes it is.
Oh, so they're literally being born.
They literally are. Yes. No, sorry.
No,
guys.
that's good. I
Sorry,
just wanted to
guys.
make sure.
No, it is literally the
Well, it's like,
calves.
what do
The
we got?
calves are being born.
Yeah.
So, I check them during the time that they're actually having calves. I check them every evening and every morning. So again, every morning when I go out, it's like, how many calves were born overnight?
Right.
And how many is that usually? I mean, because
There are some, when we hit the peak of calving season, we may have 10 a day.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
I never would have guessed. I would have said
Yeah.
like you get like 1 or 2 a week.
Yeah. No. During calving season, but they're grouped up to where when they actually are due to have calves, we have large groups that calve during that time.
Amazing.
How
I had
many
no idea.
how many acres do you have total?
Between owned and leased acres, about 600.
600. Okay. And then how many cattle?
About 200 cows.
200 cows. Okay.
And then that's the what we would call mama cows. That's actually the cows. And then we have, of course, the calves and bulls too.
So prime beef producer, what does that mean?
Well, prime is actually we're going to back up. To be prime, it's when it actually goes through the harvest facility. That's the beef. What we do is we try to raise quality cattle that will produce prime beef. And that is our goal. We select our cows and our bulls based off of the meat grade that they will produce in the end. But we also, to back up a little bit, we also select our cows based on their ability to be good mothers, because that's the beef is great, but you only get it if you've got a great mother cow to produce that calf.
I have so many questions. Can we dive into that?
I would love to dive into this.
So I want to know what makes a good, I'm not even going to say the right words, bull, steer?
A bull.
Yeah, okay.
Again.
So when you say we go after the best meat, I totally get what that means, but I don't know what that means, like practically speaking. So like,
practically speaking is, when we go to select bulls for the breeding animals, we look at what the industry provides results back on the cattle that have been harvested, that are offspring of these animals or siblings or same genetic lines, to get the quality of beef that we look for.
Okay. So it's genetic.
It is all genetic.
Oh, fast.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I digress back. It is all genetic.
No, you're good. I mean, we're learning.
Yeah. We select for the proper genetics to get quality beef.
Interesting. So when people say bad meat or like low meat quality, are they really just saying that it comes from a poor genetic line?
Some of it is. Some of it is actually the care the animal gets will affect that, but also the age of the animal. When they're produced actually for, we call the white tablecloth restaurant, it is animals that are produced and harvested timely to where everything is perfect. Your poorer quality meat is sometimes, it is actually the breeding stock that may have been, 10 to 15 years old, that is now, it's like, okay, that animal is now finished with reproduction and they go as meat at that point in their life. And it's not the same quality of meat that we get with the offspring that we grow on a daily basis.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, and I want to know too, what makes a good mother?
Good mothers are the ones that they have a calf every year. My cows work for me. Their job is to raise a calf. And if we have, all of our cattle have electronic identification on them. We have every animal identified. We keep all the records in our software. We know which cows produce calves, what those calves weigh, how long they go between breeding cycles, whether, if that cow has a calf, she's supposed to have a calf every year at pretty much the same time. I mean, ideally. If they get to the point that they only produce a calf every 18 months, they're not a good mother. They don't reproduce properly. And typically, in our operation, they find a new home. I have told Lana, I said, the way I look at these cows is you love your wife, you love your kids, your cows are your employees. They either work for you or they get a new home.
Or you get fired. Yeah.
They get fired.
Tough conversation.
Maybe, so if I'm getting this wrong and this is too dark for the podcast, does that mean you kill them or does that mean
we sell
them away?
them? No,
Okay.
we sell them. Oh, heck, no.
I didn't know what a new home was.
They all have a place to go, but somebody else can own them.
I didn't know if that's what the new home was.
A lot of producers are not maybe as harsh on their employees as I am.
Sure.
Yeah.
But my cows are my employees. We take good care of them. We feed them well.
Right.
We provide all their vaccinations, and we expect them to work for us.
I love that.
If they do not work for us, then they get to go find another job somewhere else.
You don't meet the sales quota, you
Gotta
lose your
go.
job.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
That's amazing. Cool.
All right, let's dive deeper into the cattle and farming category. There is a movement happening among the world, really. Plant-based, vegetarian, veganism, beyond meat, meat alternatives. I want to get your take on what you know about that industry, and then any implication you think that the future could have, the future of the industry as a whole. As we see technology advance, and now you can go to the store and you can buy a hamburger that bleeds on the grill that has zero beef in it. So what do you think that means for the future of the cattle industry? And then what are the other implications? What are your opinions on veganism and the plant-based movement?
Well, of course, that's from coming from rural Missouri. We live on meat and potatoes, and we substitute some salad in once in a while. Supplement with salad. How about that?
Plants are a supplement.
That's right. And now that, when we go into the meat alternatives, the plant-based meats, I think that's probably something we can't discount and say, well, that's never going to happen. It obviously is. But I can say that I don't see how you're ever going to replace that filet mignon with a soybean filet mignon.
It costs $50,000.
Yeah. And again, I'm not well versed in the artificial meats, and I know it will come, and it'll be a piece of it. Now, you're still never going to completely replace the high quality beef cuts that we strive to produce. I mean, and again, we do strive to genetically have superior animals that will produce the white tablecloth meat. That is our goal. And with that, we feel like as the commodity type beef and these plant-based meats, they will be in direct competition. The high quality meat will still have a different place on the meat display counter.
Have you ever at a steak restaurant had your own steak? Is that something you can do? Can you track it that far down?
No,
Okay.
no, I have not. No, I have not. And honestly, I very seldom eat a steak when I go out.
I would imagine.
We produce our own steaks, and sometimes we don't. I have gone out and had a steak, and then I'm sometimes unsatisfied
Sure.
because they're not as good as what I get at home.
Right.
That totally makes sense. It's kind of like being a personal trainer and then hiring a personal trainer that you don't really like that much because
Right.
he doesn't do it right. What would you say to people who have, I don't want to say ethical concerns with like just the fact that you obviously do slaughter the bulls at the end of the day. Speak to the quality of life that they get, like in general.
Our cattle are very well cared for. If you go out, you go through the pastures, they spend their days on green grass, and they have all they want to eat. We provide them all the vaccinations, all the comforts of life. We often say that really our cattle only have one bad day, and that is the day that
Sure.
They're harvested. But until that, they live a great life, and we take good care of them, and it's just a good place for them in most cases. We try to do low stress handling anytime we work with them. They're actually sometimes, I call them the employees, but they're kind of like pets too, in that, and you guys have been around sometimes when we've worked them, they'll follow us anywhere we go. And most of the time, if we want to move them, we literally get in front of them with a Ranger or a four-wheeler, and we just call them, or a truck, and they'll follow us anywhere. They'll follow us for a half a mile and go wherever we need to go. And then we just kind of close the gate behind them, and they have a new, fresh field of grass to eat on.
Well, and what would happen to cattle too if they weren't harvested at the end of the day? I guess what's the alternative to a cattle's life?
Of course, they would have no purpose, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like they would be just like another pet that at some point in their life they
That's a
would
good
get
point.
old and die. Honestly, I mean
Yeah.
but that is that's why they're here.
That's interesting.
One thing that
It's so
Andrew and I
bizarre.
talked about was you see the McDonald's sign 1 billion served. That's a lot of cheeseburgers.
It is.
Are there that many? Like, what is the biggest? What would it be? I don't even know what the war would be for. It's probably maybe a farm.
Yeah, just the mass lots with we've all seen the plant-based documentaries with the acres for for miles with
Right.
just these
Right.
cows in close quarters, and
Right.
like surely that's not the way to do it, and that's not what you're doing here.
Have you seen that in person? Like the
The
really big
feedlot.
ones?
I have seen
Feedlots.
the large
Feedlots. There's a word for it.
Yes.
I knew. I figured there would be.
And honestly, even those, I mean, they are by that point, when they go to a feedlot, those animals will live there for probably maybe 3 or 4 months of their life. And again, even those, they're not on grass, but they are in a feedlot. They're very well cared for, and they eat very well. I mean, they're fed a ration that is healthy, and they do well on it. But that is their place that they are, the final feeding area where they're prepared for harvest.
Right.
How can I go to McDonald's and get a double cheeseburger for $1.39? Like, what's with? I mean, there's something's got to be different.
And no, not really.
Really?
I mean, well, they are. I mean, they put fillers in their meat and stretch it and things like that. But typically, that meat is, again, some of those. It's not the prime beef. It's just not the prime beef. Prime beef is the best animals when they're harvested, and it's the best cuts
Okay.
out of the
Okay.
animals.
Gotcha.
Because every there's only, I would love to have an entire beef animal that was filet mignon. Doesn't happen. You only get about 10 pounds of filet mignon out of a 1,500-pound animal.
And where does that come from?
It's up in the loin area.
Interesting. Do you know this stuff?
No.
Okay.
No.
People are gonna listen to this and be like, I can't believe how little those guys knew about beef.
Yeah, and I would have to say, guys, that is not the retail cuts and where they all come from is not my niche. I grow them.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
So
It's almost embarrassing how much meat I've eaten without asking the question of like, where does this all
yeah,
come
I
from?
mean,
Or how does this
I
work?
blow myself away sometimes with how much I just do without having researched it at all.
but we
in my
all
life.
do
Totally.
that.
I
We all do
totally
that.
get it, but it's like, man, in how many categories of my life am I doing that?
Yeah.
And sometimes in this, and Cole and I actually had a conversation one day this week. Is the older we get, the more we know, and the more we realize how much we don't know. Because
Yeah,
the more you know,
that
the more you
Dunning-Kruger effect.
realize how much you don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that. Was the first thing that I saw when I met Cole, your oldest son, was his Twitter bio that said, I know a little bit about a lot of things. And I thought that has always stuck with me. That was the first time I think I'd heard that phrase. I would imagine he has learned a lot of those little things that he knows from you.
Right.
Can you speak on the importance of broadening your horizons and learning how to do different things and not necessarily doing the same thing with your family week in and week out, but really kind of branching out and exploring different things that are fun and things that are hard and what that can do for your family?
Well, I would. I've always liked to say I would like to know how to do everything, although it's impossible. So the more things you can at least have some experience in doing, I think that's probably knows a little about a lot of things.
I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Something that way. But
Yeah. Which one was it?
A little.
a lot about a little about a
A
lot.
lot. I know a
Yeah.
little about a lot of
A
things.
little about a lot.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing this?
We purchased our first breeding stock in 1992. So we're going on 30 years.
Wow. Where are you from?
I grew up over near St. Joseph, Missouri.
Okay.
And then Lana grew up. She was over in the Jameson, Missouri area. And so we kind of split the difference. When we landed in Hamilton, I had an opportunity to take a job in the bank here. And it fit well. We were actually about halfway between her home, family farm, and my family farm where we grew up. So it was very convenient that
perfect.
way.
Yeah.
And how far each way would it be? Like, is it
Less,
halfway, like 10
yeah.
hours total,
Oh
or
no,
like
oh no, we're less than an hour. We're
perfect?
either way. I mean, it is great as we were raising our children because grandparents were
Sure.
an hour either way, so they got to spend a lot of time with their grandparents that way.
Let's talk about the house that you have in Hamilton. First, Hamilton, how would you describe to a person from Kansas City? How do you get to Hamilton from Kansas City? Just so a person has an idea of where we are.
We're an easy hour north of Kansas City.
Okay.
In fact, it's like with our wedding venue, probably 50 to 75% of our customers actually come from the Kansas City area.
Wow.
It's a very easy drive up I-35. So, we say it's like to the Pearl. It is like 3 right-hand turns from Liberty.
Easy
It's
enough.
yeah, dude. Yeah,
You
makes sense.
can't
Yeah.
find out, get a new job.
It's all off of blacktop. So,
Yeah.
it's great. But,
Sure.
we're very close to the Kansas City area that way.
Gotcha. So your home here is, I think, when I think of a farmhouse from a family, 4 children, you guys have what is, I think, the picture perfect farmhouse, and it's beautiful inside and out. It's on beautiful land. What was that process like? Because that is I would imagine, your dream home, and you built that home and saw it come to life. And I believe that the story behind how that home came to be and the process of kind of your day-to-day life as a family while you were building that home to make it a reality, I think you guys made some sacrifices. Can you touch on that?
We did. We actually, of course, when we got married, we lived in rental homes like so many other people until we could find the right tract of land where we wanted to own and build our home on. And the tract of land we actually purchased at the time, we knew we wanted to build a home there. It had a double wide trailer on it. So for the first 5 years, we lived in a double wide trailer while we were preparing to build I guess what we would consider our dream home. And I have to back up. Lana has always wanted a antebellum type historic home. That was what she always wanted. She loved the historic type homes. And the practical John was, I would rather build a new home to replicate that than to try to take an old home and tear it apart and put it back together to where it will last the test of time. So that's kind of what we did. She chose the design for our home, and it is I would say a replica of a older, you know, farm home that would be of that era of the early 1900s era.
I'm curious what made Lana love that style of home. Do you have any idea?
She has always loved the old homes. She's loved old barns, and that again, that's why she was so much wanted to build the Pearl. And with the old structure like it is, with the all timber frame building to replicate the historic structure that it is. And our home the same way. It is an older, replica brick home. We wanted it to where you could, in 50 years say, oh, is that really a early 1900s home or a late 1900s home?
Yeah. So let's talk about this. I would love to know, when you built the house, the transitional phase, was that all a part of a big long-term plan to sort of set your life up for the long term the way you want it to be? Or what was the story behind that?
Well, it's definitely our long-term goal was always to have, our permanent home, we would say. We have a balancing issue that we deal with. John is very tight, and everything has to be efficient and cost efficient. Lana has a lot more vision, and and she, and I am so glad that she does, because it balances well. She has ideas of the way she wants things to look, and she does a great job with it. If it were up to me, it would be whatever's easy and cheap.
Most
Sure.
affordable.
Most affordable. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it doesn't
There
have
you
to be
go.
cheap, but most affordable
Most
sounds good.
affordable. So, so from that, the long-term goal, the long-term home was one. And we talk about today. And in fact, building the house, when we did that 20 years ago, we look back now and we say, oh, I wish we would have done this or that or the other. And that was a good thing when we went to build the Pearl because it gave us that opportunity to, let's think through it all now rather than, oh, we wish we would have done that. So we did do a lot of things in the construction of the Pearl that were forward looking so that it wouldn't be on down the road that we wish we would have done that. Because when we built the home, we cut corners at that point. Of course, we had little kids. It was a different phase of our life. So you looked at things a lot closer than what maybe we would now at this phase of our life. And so it allowed us to make new decisions, with a new building project. Lana would love to build a new house just because she loves to build things. And she has great vision. And again, by where we actually built the Pearl, she always said, that's where I want to build my next house. But the Pearl has that spot occupied now. So
It does. It'll probably be here for a while.
we expect it to be.
That's really good. John, you were lobbing us legacy softballs talking about building your house 20 years ago and learning from that, knowing what you know now, how you would change that. It might be too early to jump into that question, but in terms of life in general, do you think too many people do things without thinking about the future? And then 20 years later, they look back and say, I wish I had done this. And if you do think that, what advice do you have to people who don't want to make that mistake?
I think we all do that. I mean,
We definitely all do that.
we all do that. It's part of those phases of life that we have to train ourselves to look further down the road than what today is and what we are going to have with that project we start if it goes to for the long haul, which it is. Anytime you do something, whether it be every decision we make today impacts us on down the road. I often talk to friends and clients, and they'll say, I wish I would have, I could have bought that farm or I could have done that 10 years ago and I could have done it for a fourth of what it is today. And yes, that's true. But at the same time, if you had done that then, what would you have not been able to do that you have done today? I find myself guilty of that sometimes, because if you go back to whenever Lana and I were first married, farmland was a tenth of the price it is today. And I say, wow, we should have bought all these farms back then. Well, we didn't have the resources to do that. And even if we did, we wouldn't be the same people we are today if we had made different decisions then. So with that, you just have to kind of every decision has a consequence, positive, negative, and you learn from them and you go forward.
In hindsight, it's always 2020.
It is.
I mean, we could arguably say that farmland will be 10 times more expensive in 10 years from now. So I'm wondering though, what do you think John 20 years from now will look back on to today and either celebrate or think, should I have done that differently? Or do you ever think about that?
I do think about that, and I guess I don't look back saying what would what would I wish I've done different. I'd like to think that I try to look forward. I try to not look backward other than to maybe reminisce and try to use what wisdom I can gain from that. But to look back, I
Not always super helpful.
I honestly don't. It is always helpful, it is always helpful, but I don't want it to ever hinder to say, boy, I wish I would have done that, because
Sure.
and I guess the piece of that I like to try to share is that if I had made X decision then, whether it would have been a better decision financially or whatever, I still would not have been able to do something else because of that. I find today it used to be money was the limiting factor in everything you do. As young people, that's just the way it is. Now I find that that is always still a limiting factor, but time is more of a limiting factor. I can't do everything that I want to get done. And so sometimes you have to prioritize where you spend your resources, and spending time. I get guilty sometimes of not spending enough, just taking the time to spend time with friends and family. Instead, I've got work to do, and on I go.
Sure. Do you think time gets more precious the older you get?
Oh, absolutely. And I
Does
think everybody will tell you that.
yeah. Does being a brand new grandfather as of this morning, does that level up the I don't want to say the pressure. I don't mean the pressure, but does that heighten the sense of time's passing and there's another
You
generation on the
know,
horizon?
I guess it does. That definitely has not soaked into me
I'm
yet.
sure it's
It
been
has
what
not
time is
soaked
it?
into me yet.
It's been 9.5. It's been 9.5
Yeah,
hours.
that is definitely not soaked in yet. Although I do sometimes, I already do think forward. It's like, okay, there will be a day in the years ahead that, you'll want to spend with those children that, instead of, oh, it's like, I've got this to do and this to do and work to do. It's the relationships are still, in the end, the important piece.
It's good stuff. I like
That's
talking about
fantastic.
that. Do you want to talk about just like money advice? We
Yeah,
can just jump into it.
Yeah, let's touch on money advice, just because you are a banker. But a banker is a broad term. You could be a banker and never talk to a normal person. So, when you say you're a banker, what does that mean for you?
Well, I'm in a community bank. I've worked in a community bank for nearly 35 years. And, my greatest satisfaction is being in working with a community banker is helping people to achieve their financial goals. You know, I've got a lot of clients I work with. I have some that are third generation at this point that I have worked with their grandfather and their dad, and now I'm working with those young guys that are trying to get started. And it's a great feeling to help them to succeed with their financial goals. And I like to I hope I give them sound advice, as we go and into how to structure their business, how to plan for the future and do those things.
Sure. Times are weird right now, and it's never been more difficult, I feel, to plan for the future. There's a lot of people who have some financial uncertainty right now. What practical advice, just maybe one or two things that you would just tell your average person that maybe is in their early 20s, starting to see life becoming more real? They're starting to save, they're starting to think about marriage or kids or whatever it would be. What practical advice do you have for that person from a financial standpoint?
Well, from a financial standpoint, it's always spend less than you make and plan forward and with how you're going to spend that money. Budgeting is huge. I have whenever Lana and I first got married, I started doing all of the record keeping, at that time, and she'll tell you it really did not suit well with her. We would I wouldn't want to know where every dollar was spent, and looking back, that's not the answer. The answer is, we all have certain discretionary funds, but you do need to know where every dollar goes, or at least the bulk of it, to understand what you're doing. And I still today, you know, I we track everything to where we know where we're getting our best return in the business, and where we need to relook at allocating resources.
So when you say budget, to me that means how much do we spend on groceries? How much do we spend on our mortgage? But is there another level of investments and how you allocate your money in all kinds of areas? Because what I think our generation isn't doing, Kevin, tell me you think I'm wrong, is I don't think a lot of us are doing that yet. Like a lot of my friends, they don't invest. People don't have
Yeah, the
they don't have that
statistics you hear
vision.
about people our age and their lack of savings is some extremely uh, scary
It's
statistics
pretty
when you hear
bad.
that.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
And again, it's not. And of course, you do need to have savings as you go along. But a lot of it is, first of all, just knowing where the money comes from and where it is going. It's so easy to, and I mean, it all comes in and goes out. It's like I laugh with my customers. Yeah, it comes in the front door and goes out the back. It's just the way it goes. I mean, whether in a business or a household, it's just a part of it is the way it flows. But knowing where it goes is the really the crucial piece of the puzzle.
I feel like money advice always seems so basic when you hear it or give it, and it's so easy to say, well, of course that makes sense. It's just money comes in, money goes out. You want more coming in than going out, but it is for whatever reason so difficult to actually apply that. Um, there's no question to that. It's just more of a statement that I've noticed in my personal
Right.
life over the last
Yeah,
few
well,
years.
I wonder why though, because I mean, I think we mentioned this on a former podcast, but sometimes all of the really obvious things are right in front of you. And you know what you're supposed to do, but like I'm
Right.
just curious, why do you think that we don't do that? It doesn't even have to do with money, but like if we know smoking is bad for us, why do we smoke?
Well, we all have
Tell us, John.
those things that we just, we our habits. And again, I'm going to take that back to the money again, because sometimes if people were to track where that money goes and they realized how many dollars Starbucks gets, they would say, I maybe want to relook at that.
Back to Folgers.
So much for the
Yeah, so
Dunkin'
true.
Donuts coffee. It's
Yeah.
back to Folgers for a while.
So it seems like there's a micro level of just tracking like how you spend the money that you do have. But do you ascribe to the idea that um, easy money made can be money invested that you put in long term projects, or is it more like it's just the money you make and how you spend it and save it? I'm just curious
And
how you
I guess
roll.
I don't see there's very little easy money made. Sometimes it's easier than others, but it still all has a function in the whole scheme of life. I would have to say one thing that over the years I have found is that the the more you give away, sometimes the more you find you have. And part of that is because it's only yours if you can give it away. You know, if you don't have enough money that you can contribute to, your church, you can donate to a charity, you can help a friend, then it's not your money. And when I say it's not your money, it's because, okay, it's already committed to my mortgage, my car payment, my house payment, my farm payment, whatever else. It's only yours if you can give it away.
I've never heard that. I love that.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
We need to tell our friends that.
Yes.
So how do you feel about all this crazy credit card debt?
Credit cards are a trap. They are. And for years, I didn't have any credit.
You didn't even have a credit
No,
score.
I didn't have a credit score. Lana, she would laugh at me. Oh yeah, if she would go to wherever you could get the deal if you signed up for a credit card. If I signed up, they would just reject me because I literally had no credit. She could because she had, over the years when she was in college, she would get the free credit cards. But she's very responsible. I mean, she's one that, if she got a credit card bill, she paid in full the day the bill landed on the table. But she built a credit score, and for years, I didn't, and I have since then, and really since then, I use a credit card a lot. I pay it in full every month, and I get my free perks and bonuses and
The
all that.
benefits.
And I do, and it's like, hey, folks, I'm gonna have to spend that money to do what I do anyway.
Sure.
If you're gonna give me extra money for doing it, I'll take it.
I think that's the way I see it. I don't know about you, Kevin, but I sometimes look at credit cards and I see the benefits and I wonder what's the catch? Like, am I getting duped behind the scenes?
The catch is that you
I
forget
think
to
I
pay.
have a theory. Tell me if I'm wrong. Please tell me, and we'll put it on the podcast. It'll be hilarious about how wrong I am. But it seems like so many people are doing credit cards wrong that those companies can afford to reward the few who do it well and actually use those systems to their advantage, if you will.
And that is accurate. That is accurate. But the other piece of it is, even if every one of us paid our credit card bill in full every month and didn't get any fees or finance charges, they are still getting every time you make a purchase at the wherever you shop, that company has to pay a percentage to that credit card.
I
They
see.
don't get 100% of the money. Your $100 charge at the grocery store, the grocery store only gets $99 or $97.
Interesting.
So
So do we pay more or do the grocery stores
the
pay
grocery
more?
state,
Oh,
they
interesting.
pay.
So
They
you
pay.
really can come
Yes.
out
Yes.
with a win-win situation. That's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Well, the retailer really is honestly the one that takes it.
Interesting.
They,
How do we
they
start a
pay-
credit card company, John?
Yeah, how do we do that?
You know,
We could
good
be like
luck.
Billy McFarland.
That's what exactly.
Magnesis 2.0. Let's jump into legacy. John, we want to ask you the final vibe question that we're so curious about. How do you want to be remembered when it's all said and done?
I would like to be remembered as somebody that helped a lot of other people to be successful. In the end, that's really, when I'm gone, that's it. But if I can help other people to be successful and make their lives better, then I will have succeeded. That's, I guess, as much as anything. That and, that they pass on the faith, that they acknowledge the fact that, you know, we're just passing through here. It's that in our final home in heaven that, try to live that life for Christ and again, help other people to succeed and hopefully lead them down that same path.
I love that answer. And I wonder too, because we'll obviously have people listen who are religious, who aren't religious, or this or that. How does that, how do your religious views fuel your everyday life? And hearing you say that, you just seem so calm. You're just sitting here. Death doesn't really seem to bug you. What do you think about death? Is that a weird idea to you?
No, it's,
It's coming.
100% of us are going to go there.
It's
And no,
coming.
No, it doesn't at all. No, I don't take me as I'm ready to go because I kind of like my life here, but at the same time, that is not a concern to me. I do want to live. I want to live every day without fear of dying, and I do. The fear of dying is a weight around your neck. If you don't have that, it frees you to live your life and do what you want to, and live it in a responsible way. And also, with by having that the with a Christian principle, it guides my life in every decision I make, in that, it doesn't matter when I am by myself, when I'm taking care of a client, a customer, when I'm taking care of those cattle that, part of the care of cattle, you want to make sure that they are properly cared for. But not only that, is when we go to market them, you want to make sure that you have met all the guidelines, and there is trace back of if you've used pharmaceutical products you shouldn't use. But again, it still comes down to your character, and whether you're ever going to get caught or not. It's a matter of the fact that you live your life every day doing what's right within your conscience, and by doing that, life's pretty easy. If you don't ever have to look back as I shouldn't have done that, then try to live it that way, and then it's pretty easy that way.
Everything else just sort of falls into
It
place.
does. It does.
When my aunt was 103 years old, I sat her down on the porch of her cabin in Arkansas that she actually built. It actually reminds me a lot of your story. In your case, it wasn't the land where you grew up, but it was a place that you were passionate about. the land where she built her cabin was the land where her original house was when she was a child. And it was her lifelong dream to build her house there. And she did that. She rallied the inheritance from all the other kids and they finally, gave it to her and she built the house in the cabin. We're sitting there on the front porch and I said, "Aunt May, you've lived 100 years of life. What are 5 pieces of advice that you would just give to people to live a full life, in your opinion?" I'm wondering if you have any nuggets of wisdom for really anybody out there who's listening, because we do hope that our audience are people who want to better themselves, want to take the leap, want to not be held back by fear of death or anxiety or really anything. So, do you have any nuggets for us?
You know, I, I don't know about any great nuggets that way. One of the things that, I've always told my kids is that the most important decisions you make are, you know, first of all, it is your faith, but second of all is that person that you choose to live your life with. You know, my Lana, my wife is the most important thing in my life. And, as a young person, I would encourage any of them to choose their spouse well and choose wisely because, you know, they are your better half for the rest of your life. And that is certainly one thing. And again, take time for those relationships because, you know, there's always work to do. But the time you have to spend with friends and family is a day at a time and a moment at a time. You don't, and it's not like you. I I enjoy just that time when I can have an hour to have breakfast with the family or sit down for dinner. It's just that time, but take that time and be present. I guess that's some part of that too. Sometimes we're physically present, but be present. Be with those that you love.
It's never been easier to be disengaged,
That's
to be
correct.
distracted.
It is.
I
It's so easy to be sitting right beside someone and have no interaction with them because of the, the electronic distractions first and foremost that we all have.
Okay, John, we've talked about the farming, we've talked about the banking, and now there is within the last couple of years another aspect of your resume. You said that you and your wife co-own the Pearl, which is a wedding barn in Hamilton, probably maybe a 45-second, 60-second drive from your driveway, which is amazing that it's so close, and it's an absolutely stunning building that is it's jaw dropping when you see it from the outside. You walk inside; it's beautiful. And I was able to see a wedding here actually earlier this year. Your youngest daughter. Um, Tell us about the Pearl, what it is, how it came to be, and what it means to you.
Well, one of the things that when we started thinking about the Pearl, Lana had retired as a school principal, and at 55 years old, it's like we still want to do something. She's always wanted to do something like this, so we started researching and decided that it was a good fit for us. And the location, where we have it in the middle of, this one farm we had. So it fits very well. It's the setting on it is beautiful. I have to say that. I mean, I don't have to say that, and I try not to be boastful, but it just is. I sometimes, when I'm driving I have cattle all around in the pasture, and sometimes it just is like wow, this is pretty cool. But we decided to do this as something that we could do in our retirement. I plan on working a couple more years in the bank, and then this is our retirement. We love meeting people. We get to meet a lot of really, really neat people. With her job as a school administrator, she had to do a lot of she had to deal with a lot of negative situations with the children and with parents just because that was part of her job. With this, we get to deal with happy people. When people come to get married, they're excited. It's great. You know, we've had people here from. We at one point we're going to track the states, but I'm going to say at this point we've probably had at least brides or grooms from 10 to 12 different states already just in the last 2 years. We've had from California, from New York, from Arkansas, from all over.
That's incredible.
It is just amazing that way.
Wow.
But when we were working on building the venue, we wanted it to replicate an 1800s style Missouri barn. We had actually looked at trying to buy an old barn and relocate it, but it wasn't feasible. It was more practical to hire a authentic Amish crew to come in and build this structure as a authentic wood frame barn that's all put together with post and beam construction, wood pins, solid oak construction. It looks and feels like it was built in the 1800s, which was our goal. We tried to replicate an 1800s barn, clear down to the ironwork. We tried to get, we hired a blacksmith to actually do our ironwork so that it is authentic to the period.
That's amazing. I had no idea that it was that authentic.
Yeah, the details come through. It's I love the fact that we are actually recording this episode in the bridal suite upstairs of the Pearl, which is kind of a fun fact that we're surrounded by salon chairs and bright lights. It's a fun place to record a podcast. One of the most unique, I would imagine, that we'll do. Let's lighten things up a little bit. I do have one more question. You've said that you've struggled a little bit to take time to relax or just take time for yourself. When you do have time to do that, what does that look like? If let's say you have 72 hours to do whatever you want, what are you doing?
I almost have to. I either have to completely disengage. I love to stay home. My patio, the back patio, is sometimes my favorite place to be, to just sit there.
I can vouch. It's a very nice patio.
And just, our patio looks out over, the pond. It's a great place to just stop and relax. Although after I sit there for a couple hours, I normally think, okay, I've got something I should be doing.
See something out there you got to go.
But again, that's, so to say 72 hours, I mean, some of the best things that if I can get away, is to go. Lana and I like to bike, we like to hike. To just completely remove ourselves and to do that is a great thing. I like to spend time together just with us or with the kids.
Sure. Where was the last place that you went on vacation?
The last place, earlier in the summer, we went down to the Current River and did a float trip. Just the two of us, just escaped for a short weekend.
Awesome.
And it was good.
That does sound fun. All right, we're going to blast you with lighter questions, fun questions, just to let the hair down, and we'll cruise out of the podcast feeling light and happy. We heard through the grapevine of your sons that you're a man who appreciates a good craft beer. What's your favorite craft beer?
I don't have any particular favorite. The most fun about the craft beer is actually the opportunity to go and explore different breweries and just taste and see. It's more the experience than it is the beer.
Yeah.
To me, the beer is a sidebar to an experience of going to breweries and just sampling.
It's just what allows you to get out there and do the fun things. Yeah, it's just the excuse. Yeah. Are you a wine guy at all?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Lana's more of a wine girl, so
Sure.
She is not a beer person, so we hit the wineries too, because
That's right.
And again,
That's
it's the same thing. It's really not about the wine, it's about the venue.
Yeah.
We like to go to different venue wineries, and again, it's the experience. It's
Sure.
more than the wine, for sure.
Have you ever made a trip out to California for their...
We have not. We have talked about
You might need to do that.
We might.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin and I are orchestrating your next vacation.
Yeah. There you go.
Perfect.
Here in real
Perfect.
time. Are there any passions that you have that in another life you wish you could pursue fully? So I guess, for example, you're farm man, you're a banker. Was there another thing that you were ever like, man, if I had another lifetime to do, I would chase after this?
I don't know that there really is. One of the things, I guess, to say that in another lifetime, I always have to think about heaven and the new earth. And it's like, hey, I like this idea because you get all the great things of earth. I can eat all I want, and it's all good for you.
It does make the imagination go wild.
It does. It's like, all the beautiful things of the earth today. You think about it, it's like, those snowy days, how uncomfortable they are when you're out in them, but they're just awesome, beautiful. They won't be uncomfortable.
That's right.
They'll just be awesome,
just beautiful through the window every time.
That's right. All you have to be you can be out in it, see, because it's still comfy.
Yeah. Here we are trying to get light, and we just keep coming back to meaningful things.
Hey.
No, I do wonder the same thing too, because I think so many people are stressed and anxious all the time, and I'm not speaking of why people are stressed and anxious, but if I really thought that like life is just finite and I only get this one shot, then I totally get why you'd be stressed out, because every opportunity that you choose one thing, like you said earlier, you've missed an opportunity to do something else.
Right.
And every choice
Right.
is a trade-off. And the decision fatigue that plagues some people, I think, could be totally overwhelming. So I resonate with that a lot. John, what's your favorite fast food restaurant?
Oh, favorite fast food restaurants? Probably Chick-fil-A.
Oh, that's so common.
That's a great answer, though.
we need to be sponsored by Chick-fil-A.
And
What's your order?
Just the basic number one.
Oh, it's so good. How do you feel about the pickle? Is the pickle the X factor?
It needs to be there, definitely.
100% it needs to be there.
It totally needs to be there. Have you had the mac and cheese?
No.
It's pretty good.
Is it?
Yeah, my wife's a big fan.
Everything they have is
Big
pretty
fan.
good.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, man.
I have two questions. First, what is the population of Hamilton, Missouri? And second, what are the pros and cons of living in a city, in a town with that population, other than the fact of what we just learned, that Sam's Club and Papa John's are both 50 miles away?
They are.
And we do want your opinion on the shakaroni.
Yeah, the Shakaroni. The population is like 1,890, I think, is the actual population. And the pros of it are definitely the small town life is much slower paced. The cons, of course, are the amenities are not as close. But, I sometimes tell my friends and people that I deal with out of the Kansas City, a lot of our population drives to Kansas City to go to work. So they do that 5 days a week. I drive to Kansas City for recreation. I do that 1 day a week. So I get to have the amenities of the city an hour away, and I still have a 2-mile commute to work. They have if they want to get to the slower paced rural life, then it's a lot more difficult for them.
Sure. You got a win-win situation.
I like to think of it that way
I like
anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. John, how much protein do you eat per day?
Not a clue. If I can have, of course, the joke at home is Dad's standard diet is steak and ice cream. So
No, man.
if
That sounds pretty good.
if
That
I,
sounds very good.
when I'm cooking for myself, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to put the steak on the grill, eat that, and then I'm going to have a bowl of ice cream. Done.
Is it one of those things where well, first of all, does Lana ever leave town? Are you
No,
ever,
not
are you
very-
ever
not
just
very-
living the
not very-
bachelor life?
Not very often. Not very often.
You're the guy who just
Yeah.
falls to pieces when she leaves.
I'm trying to think that there had been a few times when, and I don't remember what it was, when she was still an educator and a principal, she would travel for conferences, things like that. Of course, Dad would be home taking care of the kids, but that was the kids' thing. It was like, oh yeah, Dad's cooking. It's steak and ice cream.
The bluebell's coming out.
Seriously, that's how you win points with your kids.
That's right.
For sure.
Nobody cared. Steak and ice cream.
Yeah. Yeah. So after coffee in the morning, what's for breakfast? You a breakfast guy?
Generally, it's a bagel or a breakfast bar or something on the way out the door.
Easy.
No,
Yeah,
so no.
easy enough.
Unless it's a weekend, and then sometimes I will sit down and have Lana will fix eggs. We'll have it actually sit. This time of year, a couple mornings, we'll sit out on the patio, have breakfast, and life is good.
Yeah. You spend a lot of time in the car and tractors and just kind of looking probably to kill time. Podcast, music, what do you do? Is it nothing? What do you, how do you fill in?
Well, historically, it's always been radio, and a lot of times it's talk radio. I have gotten more to where I do podcasts now. I've got a set of Bluetooth headphones that if I'm actually in a lawnmower or anything where it's noise related, I just put my Bluetooth headphones on and listen to a podcast, and it's good.
John, you like to go shopping?
Recreationally, once in a while.
No. What do you buy? What do you buy?
I don't. I have a purchasing agent.
Oh, that's amazing. Is her name Lana?
It is. She does great. She takes care of me. She keeps me well dressed.
Your shirt looks
well
great, by the
and
way.
well fed. Thank you. Yeah, I often say, somebody will say, oh, I like your shirt, whatever. It's like, yeah, my purchasing agent took care of that.
Perfect.
For me.
Now, do you actually say that, or you just take the compliment and walk
No,
away?
no, I do say that. I do always.
I
say,
actually
my
100%
purchasing
believe
agent.
that. Yeah. I think a lot of people are going to be listening to this, especially the single guys, thinking, "Where do I get a Lana?" So, I mean, what's your favorite part about your wife? You speak so highly of her all the time.
Everything at this point.
She's all the best things about
She
life.
is. She is all the best things about life.
And Kevin, we can actually attest to that because we've met Lana. She's the sweetest lady.
100%.
Yeah.
Do you have any dating advice to somebody who would be single right now?
That's a
Again,
good question.
In the early 20s?
I do, and I would tell you the same thing I've always told my kids. When you go dating someone, if they're not someone you would marry, don't date them. When you first meet that person, and it's like, they're fun to hang out with and all that, but I would never marry them. They don't date them.
Yeah, you're going playing with fire.
You're going on a dead end road. So dating advice is, look for somebody that you like to spend time with, and that, okay, if it went on down the road, it would be somebody that I would want to marry.
Sure. I'm just curious, how long do you think it takes to make that judgment call on people?
No idea.
Me neither.
Sometimes, and again, when I say that, I mean, we all run across certain people that the judgment calls pretty quick to go the negative.
Sure.
The positive, you can always have an idea, but still.
Yeah.
Time.
Why'd you name the Pearl the Pearl?
We were looking for something that was classy, but not, we actually started out with pearls and planks, I think was what we were looking at, knowing it was an all wood structure designed as a timber frame. It's like, oh yeah, pearls and planks. But then it's like, no. So we said, okay, it's the Pearl. It's just a classy place. And we wanted it to be a easy, short name that people would just associate with the venue.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to toot your horn here a little bit, so I hope you don't get uncomfortable. But what I'm so impressed about, and I met you years ago, through your son, of course, but I'm blown away by the simplicity of who you are, and yet how that simplicity, like you said earlier, is fueling everything you do. And the fact that you built this place and you said that we're going to be authentic with everything that we can be within reason. I see that in your life. I see the authenticity. You do everything with excellence. Like you do everything the right way. That's what gets me excited. And it's why FinalVibe is really rich to me, because FinalVibe is just the brand that we're kind of slapping on everything. But really, it's just we want people to be like you, in the sense that you just do things well. And that maybe that sounds so cliche and cheesy, but is it really that simple sometimes? Just doing things the right way?
I guess so. I appreciate your, strong encouragement there. To me it is, I guess, and maybe that's it's I try to keep things simple, because simple, as long as we can keep it flowing that way, you live your life without a lot of complications, and it's a lot easier to live.
Yeah.
It's just a straightforward, honest life. And just, I've tried to teach my kids to work, and it's just, if you do the basics of life, it's really pretty easy.
It takes care of itself.
It does. That's kind of the way I like
it. It is interesting how it really just comes down to that.
I think that's the podcast title. It takes care of itself.
It takes care of itself. What's your definition of work ethic?
I would say being willing to jump in and help others at all times. And that's probably as much as anything. It is not just about getting out there on your own every day and just working, but it's also being willing to see your coworker, see your parents, or the kids. I see them. We try to help them. It's about work ethic is about helping others really as much as it is just working. And sometimes, I have seen over my life is there are some people that are very, very hard workers, but they don't make a lot of progress in life because they don't maybe work efficiently or effectively with the resources they have.
Or they might be doing it all for themselves, which I
Exactly.
think I
Exactly.
see a lot. And I'll be honest, I'm tempted to be that guy sometimes. I'm tempted to think if I just pour all my energy into myself, then maybe that will benefit myself. But I find that the sweetest moments are the ones that you sacrifice when you could have spent it on yourself and you give that time to somebody else. And you're a family man, so tell us really quick how you've approached parenting over the last almost 30 years. Has
30
it
years.
been more than
It
30
has been
years?
30 years.
It's been 30
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Lauren's turned 30
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. How has that ebbed and flowed over the
No,
years? Or has it just been the same?
No, it's definitely ebbed and flowed. That's a part of all of life. Of course, our philosophy with kids is that we try to encourage them to be independent thinkers, work, and then as they matured in life, teenagers, we tried to guide them and keep them between the guardrails, maybe, is I think kind of the philosophy we had. We don't micromanage and we tried to help them make good decisions so that they learned to make decisions. Rather than tell them everything to do, we tried to encourage them to maybe guide them in the decision process. So they came up with the decision that we wanted them to come up
That's right.
with. That was, and I think that's kind of the way it always goes. But making it to where helping them to make their own good decisions, to where hopefully as adults they can do that. It's just not, and they don't have to think twice about it. They just make hopefully good decisions because they've learned to make good decisions. Sometimes you have to make bad decisions though to make good decisions. So, and that's, sometimes we learn more from our mistakes than we do from our successes.
Do you think there's value in letting people or your kids or those around you fail from time to time so they can learn for themselves?
Minor failures, yes.
Small failures.
Because again, we all have to fail. I mean, sometimes our greatest successes come from our failures. So,
Sure.
Again, keeping them between what we've always referred to as between the guardrails. Don't let them fail big, but allow them to experience things that maybe aren't detrimental for their life.
Kevin, send us out of here. Wrap it up. This is the end of the 5th Final Vibe episode.
It is the 5th. That's pretty fun. All right, John, we're going to let you get out of here. We really do appreciate your time today to sit here with us and let us ask you a whole bunch of questions about your personal life. We really do respect you as a person. What you've accomplished is remarkable. Congratulations again on becoming a grandfather today.
Thank you.
Really, when I look at my Mount Rushmore of upstanding men who I've met, you are on that list 100%. We wanted you on this podcast, and it was kind of on the dream list. And the fact that we were able to do it this soon is really awesome for us. And I think this will be an episode that a lot of people will resonate with and absolutely take something from and be able to apply it to their own life. So we really appreciate you hanging out with us for a bit.
Thank you. I always hate somebody to put me as something up there because we're all subject to failure. So I hope I don't ever let you guys down.
No, absolutely not. No way. We do appreciate it though. And we appreciate everybody listening as well. Episode 5 of the Final Vibe podcast officially in the books. We will be back next week for episode 6. And if you could take a few seconds to leave a positive review of the podcast or share it with a friend, we would appreciate it. And until next time, thanks so much for listening.